Welcome back, guys. Today we'll be talking about Leman Russ and his first meeting with the Emperor and the challenge between them. So let's do this. The Primarch of the Space Wolves had landed upon the icy death world of Fenris, his incubation pod plummeting down into the flank of a vast mountain. Given the harshness of the Fenrisian climate, it is safe to say that a lesser being would have died almost immediately upon his arrival. Emerging from his smoke capsule, the infant Primarch soon encountered a deadly mother thunderwolf. He was doomed, yet fate it seemed had other ideas. Sensing in the feral youth a kindred spirit, the giant she-wolf did not kill the child, but instead raised him alongside her cubs as one of her own. During one fateful hell winter, when the feral wolf child was discovered by a hunting party of Fenrisian tribesmen, in a vicious confrontation, the wolf mother was slain by their spears and arrows, along with many of her cubs. The Primarch fought with terrible fury, slaying a dozen warriors, with naught but his bare hands to protect his two surviving packmates, Friki and Gary. It was then that fate intervened once more. One of the tribesmen at last recognized the Primarch for what he was, a human, not a wolf, and called for his fellow huntsmen to lower their weapons. The bloodied youth stood his ground, fangs bared, but understood their peaceful gesture and stayed his wrath. Unsure quite what to do, the tribesmen prod the young Primarch and his wolfkin, for he would not be parted from them before the court of King Thingir of the Russ tribe. The ancient chieftain saw the undeniable potential in the young man, and ordered that he be given a place within his household, there to be raised as a true Fenrisian, as a warrior. Though many were left dumbfounded by the king's decision, time certainly proved Thingir wise. Amongst his own kind for the first time, Leman quickly learned their skills, showing a natural aptitude for the way of the warrior. He learned to speak, and mastered their primitive weapons, iron axes and swords. Though he was quick to roar with laughter or bellow tunelessly in song, the Primarch slowly realized that he was more human than wolf, but far superior to both. When Russ handed the champion of the King's Guard his battle axes during their third sparring session after disarming him, Thingir admitted to himself that the young man was destined for greatness. The Primarch soon spoke the Fenrisian dialect of Low Gothic with powerful eloquence, and one evening King Thingir deemed him worthy to receive a true name. The king named the former wolf child Leman of the Russ. As the Primarch grew to maturity, he became the greatest of their number by far, leading the tribe's warriors to 1,000 victories and more. Upon King Thingir's death, Leman of the Russ took his place upon the throne. So did the Wolf King become a living legend across Fenris. It was only a matter of time before word of his fame reached the ears of one who desperately sought news of his lost sons. Much of what is known of Leman Russ's early years is born of hearsay and legend, as his fame quickly spread throughout the tribes of Fenris. It was said that he was able to turn back whole armies of the king's enemies by himself without a scratch, to tear whole oak trees from the ground and snap them over his back in twain, and to wrestle Fenrisian mammoths to the ground and roast one whole for his meal that evening. When King Thingir died, there was no question as to who should succeed him as the monarch of the Russ. Therefore, King Leman of the Russ took the throne. In time, his leadership was recognized by all the tribes of the frigid world, for all sought to benefit from his wisdom and extraordinary skills at arms, on a world where the weak did not survive for very long. Thus it came to pass that Russ was hailed as the king of all Fenris, the Wolf King, his judgment considered to be as strong as his sword arm, and his authority indisputable. No man nor beast could best the Wolf King, no tribe could stand against his armies. Within Russ's kingdom, a truce existed between man and wolf. His court was attended by the fiercest of warlords and the most beautiful of maidens. Tales of his mighty conquests spread like forest fires, and it was not long before the eyes of terror turned upon his deeds. When the fleets of the Emperor's great crusade neared Fenris, they heard tales of Fenris's extraordinary Wolf King. The legend of the Wolf King was quickly identified as the work of a missing Primarch, and the Emperor descended to the planet, and it was that the great sky-spanning starships of the Emperor traveled to the center of the Sea of Stars, settling on the icy world of Fenris. Scant years after Russ's ascension to the throne, he had forged by uniting all the fractious tribes of his world. The Emperor, disguised in a long plain robe and cloaked in psychic runes of disguise and confusion, entered the long hall of Russ. Those few natives that were sharp-eyed and sober, as well as the great Fenrisian wolves, shrunk from this new powerful presence. Russ refused to pay him homage as the master of mankind. The Emperor had known well that proud Russ would never bow to his rule without being beaten in a contest. The Emperor was convinced of his own power and knew that such a challenge would be as nothing to him. The strange wanderer approached the gnarled wood of the Wolf Throne and its gargantuan occupant, and stood firm, staring hard at where Russ was presiding over the feast. It was then that the stranger offered his challenge. The nature of the contest was for the Wolf King to decide. If he won, the stranger asked for nothing but to be allowed to drink at the right hand of Russ during the feast. Russ demanded that should the wanderer fail, he would serve at the king's behest for a year. Grimly, the stranger accepted. Russ challenged the Emperor to a series of tests. The Wolf King did not wish to spoil a good feast. His first challenge was to an eating competition. The stranger ate well indeed, consuming many times more than the stoutest warriors present without pause. But when he looked up from his plate, Russ had already consumed 3 entire aurochs. The stranger had lost the first challenge, but the king was enjoying his sport. He realized that the brown-cloaked traveler had the spirit of a Fenrisian, and so he challenged the outlander to a drinking bout. But by the time the wanderer had reached his 6th barrel of strong Fenrisian mead, there was no more to drink. The Wolf King had drained the entire feast dry. Once again the Emperor had lost. The light of anger appeared in the wanderer's eye. Driven by disappointment in his offspring, the wanderer called Leman Russ a drunkard and a glutton, able to achieve nothing more in life than stuffing his face and bellowing hollow posts. The Wolf King calmly laid down the consequences of his last challenge, and his court backed away as one. The court grew silent, daring not even to breathe, as Russ drew his great sword from its scabbard and stepped onto the long banqueting table. For the 3rd challenge, Russ boasted he could defeat the Emperor in combat. The Emperor threw away his cloak, the hood falling from his face, his true form revealed. He stood far taller than any man present, swathed in light and clad in baroque golden power armor. This time, the Emperor defeated Russ, felling him with a mighty blow from his power glove. When Leman came back to consciousness within the hour, he admitted defeat, and with a bloodied smile and a broken fang, he swore fealty to his true father, the Emperor of mankind. Spiriting the great Wolf King away from Fenris, the Emperor began Russ's tutelage in the ways and technology of his star-spanning Imperium. The Primarch's teaching and training went swiftly. It was only a matter of weeks before the Emperor judged Russ worthy of leading his armies in the great crusade across the galaxy. Leman Russ was introduced to the warriors of the 6th Legion of Space Marines, who had been created through the implantation of gene seed organs that had been grown from his own DNA. And so it became to be that Leman Russ became the father and lord of the newly named Space Wolves Legion of the Legion Astartes, and joined the glorious action of the Great Crusade. He was armed with a thrice-blessed suit of power armor, and his great sword was replaced with the legendary frostblade Mjolnir, whose teeth were torn from the maw of the great kraken Gormanyar, and were then used in its forging. Reputably, the blade could cleave the ice mountains of Fenris in half. With his mighty frost blade, Russ plunged headlong into the fighting at the forefront of every battle, vanquishing all before him. Throughout the long and difficult battles of the Great Crusade, the Space Wolves and their Lupin allies drawn from amongst the Fenrisian wolves were always at the front line. Russ strode at the head of his legion, slaughtering all who dared stand before him, his coming announced by the howling of the pack. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay tuned for more.